Everyone, this is Light, and welcome to my ML5 Headhunt tier list. So, I'll be going over most of the available units, and this tier list is in no particular order, so left, right, it doesn't matter. So let's get into it. So first we have Death Dealer Ray, best soul weaver in the game. He has a lot of different builds. He can be a good healer with Guardian Ice Crystal. His debuffs are very strong. Injury is also very strong in this very tanky meta. If you don't have a Moonlight connection to get him with, I would highly recommend picking him up, like, above all the other options. He is just that good. He's just used in every playstyle, and yeah, he'll probably be good for a very long time. And then we have Ambitious Tywin, definitely best knight in the game, most versatile, but the most important thing is that he has a secondary cleanse in his passive, and that's invaluable in this debuff heavy meta. And for cherry on top, he can also be a very aggressive unit because he has defense break and stun on his S3, which can also be ignore ER when you're enraged, but you don't even need to be enraged for it to be value. And then he's also definitely best knight in the game with ML Poly too, because like ML Poly S3 gives him enrage, and then he rips S3 and stuns everything turn 1. They're just the perfect pair. And ML Poly is definitely the best aggression enabler in the game. She cripples units with her passive, she cripples units with her S3 pushback, speed down and all that. And the force to dual attacks with your highest attack unit just closes the game out real quick. Super strong in RTA and arena offense and arena defense. So, Guild War defense. Sorry, she's also good in arena defense because of Harsetti, but yeah, insanely powerful unit, especially for RTA. Abyssal Euphine, this one is a bit more controversial because people will be like, oh, but she gets countered by Ilinav, she gets countered by Mort. Well, I think Euphine is a must-have core unit for RTA players. Because the way the game is right now is that Cleave is so insanely strong that you can't really tank out a cleaver, you have to disrupt them. And the best way to disrupt them is with Euphine on third pick ban protection to cut their CR so you can interrupt their cleave basically with stuff like ML Ball. And for that reason, I think Euphine is definitely a must-have unit, because she is essential anti-cleave for basically every player. So yeah, super good to have. And like, she's not completely useless in like standard play. Like sometimes you can pick her late to 1v4. But yeah, 100% core unit if you're an RTA player. And then we have ML Haste. I have ML Haste a bit lower on the list because with the existence of ML Ilinav, it's actually quite hard to use haste unless you pick the Ilinav yourself, and Ilinav is banned very often, or like first picked very often. It's like you don't really get a chance to play haste too much. I mean, he doesn't have much use on like arena defense or like Guild War defense or anything, but he is definitely nice to have in the case where Ilinav is on your side or banned. And then we have Conquer Lilius. I'll say she's the second best aggro enabler in the game next to ML Poly. She doesn't cripple people nearly as hard, and she has a few weaknesses. For example, she's basically unplayable if Arcetti is available. And yeah, she's still decent. She's definitely one of the only ways you can play aggressively. No, she's still decent on Guild War defense and all that. So yeah, definitely a decent unit still. Urban Shadow Shoe, I'll say she's still the second best injury unit in the game. And she's particularly good because the game is like getting increasingly tanky. Like it's like there are 30k HP units running around everywhere now, so she's actually pretty decent at dealing with that. So yeah, but not as safe as Death Dealer Ray though, because like he's like really tanky and heals you. But she was more like a situational damage dealer. But yeah, she's super good. Mediator Quirk, he is the best cleanser when cooldown reset is not involved. And he's also very strong with and against hard steady. So that's super nice. He's also really good on Guild War offense, particularly against hard steady defenses. So yeah, he's definitely a great pickup. Sage Vivian. Sage Vivian is one of the only viable damage dealers in the game because most damage dealers get screwed over by debuffers, but Vivian is immune to debuffs. So that's she's got a lot going for her with that. They're definitely one of the only viable damage dealers in the game, and she's very naturally tanky, which is nice. Bellion definitely one of the best damage dealers right now as well, because Death Dealer Ray plus 3F Bellion just does so much damage, and she's so tanky. Like she can be 30k HP and do massive amounts of damage because you can proc 3F 8 times in one turn with her S1. So yeah, she does crazy damage while being a defensive unit, and like stuff like Knockwall doesn't really affect her. So like on her turn she'll S1 AoE, and like it's not too bad, and like Denying Souls is also really good. The downside is you want to have a 3F, which is a limited artifact from Overlord banner, which is a shame. So yeah, super good. Arbiter Vildred, the EE makes him much better. If someone picked like minimal tanky units, or like no sustain, and Arbiter Vildred gets 2 turns, they're probably really dead. Now RB is a huge threat, especially with Harsteady. So like you can build RB very high damage and slow, and then Harsteady just like it enables him to take turns and stuff. So yeah, super strong. Solitaria is one of those units. So she denies a mechanic completely with her passive, which means that she will only gain more value as like the game progresses, as they release more units with focus. And right now she's one of the only kind of counters to Fire Flan, and that makes her very valuable. Yeah, I think she's definitely really good to have. And last rider Krau, he is really good after the buff. The cooldown reset makes him decent against Knockwall, and it makes him really good with Knockwall and like other units like Laya. So yeah, he's much more of a support now, and his damage is still decent. Only downside is he doesn't do damage against Illinap, but like most units don't. Sage Baal, I used to have him lower tier, but now I think he's much more necessary, especially if you're an RTA player, because like I said earlier, anti-cleave is an important part of RTA because there are so many cleavers now, and the best way to anti-cleave is to interrupt people with CR cut on 3, and then you pick a disruptor like ML Ball to like mess them up. So ML Ball definitely much higher priority now, because he's one of the only answers to cleave, to be honest. So yeah, pretty nice unit. Designer Lilibet, oh, she got a huge glow up. The patch made her do so much more damage. The immunity buff on S2 is crazy, and the defense break on S1 is also crazy. She's super good, definitely one of the best cleansers in the game now, that can also reverse cleave people really hard. So yeah, very strong. Very strong. Like she'll let you cleave people with like all like HP and defense scaling units. Like it's kind of crazy. Ruel is actually really good now as an anti-cleave unit, as well as like countering a lot of single target damage. She's really good into Fire Flan, and she's really good into any cleave that's relying on raw damage instead of debuffs. And she's a very big menace, especially with like super tanky drafts like Illinav, ML Haste, LRK, Ruel, Laya. Like those super tanky drafts she does really well in. And she's especially good with Last Rider Krau and Laya because they kind of reset her cooldown so you can just spam her buttons, which is really crazy. It's very good to have. So says he got an EE that makes him compatible with Death Dealer, right? It's something. It is something, but I feel like it doesn't really change his playstyle too much. Oh, it's hard to say. I think the problem with Fez is that if you miss your debuffs, he's kind of useless. But also, with the existence of Illinav, he can't really do anything. And also, he doesn't really do anything to like Fire Flan either, or Harsetti. He just kind of makes it RNG. Like the thing about Sez is that it's really awkward to set him up. And then if you like miss your debuffs, whoopsies, he's kind of useless. But he definitely has. If you want to like build a team around him in RTA, you could definitely do it. It will just be very sketchy at times. I feel he's more of a for fun unit these days. So I'm not too keen on him. I think if you like him, he'll be very fun. But yeah, I'm not too keen on him. And we have Landy. Landy, huge fall from grace. I think Fire Flan was the nail in the coffin for her. She just has way too many counter picks now. Like she's weak into Illinav, she's weak into Haste, she's weak into LRK, she's weak into Senya, she's weak into everything that's meta right now. And yeah, she's just not very good anymore. I can't recommend anyone picking her up, unfortunately. And for that same reason, because Landy is way out of favor, I don't think ML Bologna is very useful anymore either. But she's a very vulnerable bruiser that was only used to counter Landy, who is now almost non-existent in the meta. So I don't think, like, unless you like her, like, she's not very useful anymore. Besides on like some Guild War, yeah, she's not. And she's also good for auto battling arena, but overall, you won't be using her much. But yeah, Ravi. Ravi is like that injury bruiser that you pick if you don't want to pick Shu because you're scared of dying. But also, Ravi, she's really strong with Harsetti as like a later pick, and you build her like very slow to complement your Harsetti, and she's actually pretty decent in that way. Definitely a usable unit right now. Stenny. I mean, Stenny is one of those units where sometimes the other person will pick like no AoE, and then Stenny just kind of wins the game. So that's nice, but it's also very rare. She still has her uses. Kind of, the EE makes her slightly better, but otherwise, yeah, she's nice to have, but she won't be like core for anything, pretty much. Lionheart Cermia, she's better with her buff, but she still has a lot of weaknesses that are easily exploited in RTA. Like she's as funny as it is, she is weak to debuffers because the counterplay is always proc her and then control her. But in more controlled environments like Arena and Guild Wars, she can perform pretty well. I think she is essential for some Guild War attacks. Like for example, Elvira, Rowana, Lionheart Cermia, very useful at fighting the Yushin defenses. But she has some use, but RTA not the greatest. MLK I'm not quite sold on this unit yet, but I feel like in RTA specifically, he can be pretty decent against people who don't pick too many debuffers, but also they pick units that are kind of easy to kill. Like people are building Kron full tank and just like waiting for his S3 and then pressing it and then just killing everything. but he's not gonna work against really tanky teams because he just won't have enough damage. But yeah, against teams with like minimal mitigation, he is pretty decent. I'm not, to be honest, I haven't seen much of him myself, but I play very tanky. But I've seen other people make him work. He is definitely usable now. ML Ken, he's ML Ken. He's nice for Guild War, sometimes nice for Arena. Sometimes like the stars will align and he's good in RTA. Like he exists, but he's definitely not the best. So he's a thing. Usable sometimes, but not the best. OQC is the most reliable anti-dark unit in the game. However, you have to have Illinav to pick her. But yeah, she's anti-dark. Can use her on Guild War offense pretty easily. If you have the Illinav, she's pretty decent. Although I feel like OQC is a little... She lost some of her usage because Yufine isn't as prevalent anymore because of Mort and all that. But yeah, definitely has a use as being an anti-dark unit, but that's about it. Maid Chloe. F-Res is a pretty strong stat right now. And Maid Chloe gives your team like so much F-Res for free. If you want to build your account around her and build everything on F-Res, it's not actually the worst idea. But it takes like a lot of it would take a lot, but she's definitely not bad by any means. But definitely very hard to use, but she is usable. Strays like they're pretty much the same unit. If for some reason Illinav is not in the game and the other person isn't picking like 530k HP knights, these units are actually pretty decent. But otherwise, yeah, you won't really use these too often. You have ML Sharon. ML Sharon is one of the only counters to DDR, but the problem is you have to be very aggressive when you play her, and she also sucks against a Tywin. But she can handle DDR sometimes if you're aggressive enough. And I think that's pretty valuable in itself because DDR has very little counters. So Sharon, definitely usable. Remnant Violet. He's an evasion unit. He's not for the faint of heart. I feel like Remnant Violet, when picked well, can win you the game like most of the time. But also, if you don't like units that just automatically lose you the game, you probably won't like him. He's really good with like the Frida Soulburn cheese, if you're interested in that. But otherwise, he's not. He won't be used too much, but he is. He can be kind of strong, depending on your draft, but not unless you have like a vision for him. I wouldn't recommend picking him up. Pirate Flan. She's one of the easier debuffers to build like 300 effectiveness to deal with super high ER players. But like this unit, it's just in her nature to be very unreliable. Because 1 or 2 15% and you're probably just gonna lose the game because of her. And because she has to build so much effectiveness, she's gonna be very squishy and often a liability unless you just like control the other person permanently. So she's okay if you really need a debuffer, but there are better options unfortunately. Dark Corvus. Dark Corvus is still a staple for Guild War sometimes. Not much use in RTA because everything kind of overwhelms him and kills him. He's okay. He's okay in Guild War and Arena, but not the best right now at all. ML Celine. ML Celine is okay in some anti-cleaves and some Guild War offenses, but she's not too usable. And definitely her most use is in Guild War, but that's about it. RTA extremely unreliable, and like she has a lot of counters, but she can work if you have some kind of like well tuned like cheese shenanigans, but otherwise not the best unit. And then there's not much to say about these units because they don't really have any place in the game right now, to be honest. I would avoid these altogether. And these units, I kind of put them in their own tier because I feel like if you're a cleaver, you can just kind of pick any of these that you're missing. But I'll go through them anyway. Flitica, if you can build her 300 speed, she's really good. Same thing for TML, however, that requires really good gear. And these units don't really do anything unless you have that kind of crazy gear. Judge Kisei, she's really strong in Ahmed Cleave if you're still into that, and she's also really strong with Frida. Because Frida gives her free soulburn, so she's her own cleaver. She defense breaks and then cleaves the other person with ignore ER soulburn. So like she's the DPS and she's the damage, or sorry, she's the defense break and she's the damage all in one, and that's extremely strong. Especially with Frida Cleave. So yeah, definitely really strong unit to pick up. Ludwig, Ludwig is Ludwig. He's really good when you're abusing souls, but it's actually pretty hard to play like that right now because of Zio and Harsetti. But he's definitely, if you want to use him, you'll be able to use him. He's still really strong with like the Luna, Frida, Cleave. So yeah, if you want to use him, you can definitely use him. Briar, unless you're like 310 speed Bryceria, like again, Bryceria is just like Face of Litica and TML. You need to be really fast and use this unit efficiently, because like she doesn't have much use besides being a cleave opener. Like her damage is pretty lackluster. Like sure, she stops survives, she defense breaks, but I feel like she's kind of a liability unless you're cleaving with her, to be honest. Requiem Rowana, skill reset is really good. She's naturally a cleave unit. She does a lot of damage. She can defense break. Like yeah, definitely a staple cleave unit. Zio is actually really good for like non-cleavers too, because like even if like you don't cleave, you can still use him in like Guild War offense and cleave a lot of Harsetti defenses with him. Like Zio, Veronica, Commander Pavel is like 100% win rate against some Harsetti defenses. I almost want him to be like up here, just cause like he's so good at Guild War against Harsetti, but like that's not enough usage, right? Well, he's also kind of good with Harsetti, base speed, and RTA, but you know, his most of his usage is just in Cleave, basically. But yeah, decent unit. And yeah, of course, we have the units we can't pick because it only goes up to ML Politis, I believe. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful.